Okay, hopefully this doesn't matter. Can you all hear me? Great. Okay, remember the cards, please. I hope we'll see you at Bohemian Hall, but if not, and you scurry, I want to say a heartfelt thank you for joining us because it's been really sublime. And using the sublime as a word is a perfect segue into um, today's final speaker, because Stephen Hannock has arguably spent quite a lot of time thinking about what some people have referred to as the American sublime, but seeing it in his own way, um, bringing a very distinctive, highly personal, meaning filled essence to quote the term luminist. And his image of the oxbow is something that is probably in everyone's mind. He has works in all major museums, numerous examples at the Whitney, SAM, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He's about to have a major show at Mass MoCA that will open in June of this year. And this is also a period of renaissance, if you will, for his phosphorescent paints, which I'm sure he will tell you about, and perhaps his collaborations with Sting. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Stephen, who was actually involved in our first frame conference in 1997. But anyway, Stephen Hannock, the Sublime.
It's good to see everybody here recovering from being lassoed by Lisa's velvet headlock here. It's a very comfortable and familiar place that we all know. Katie, thanks so much for that talk. That was really, I don't know anything about Minnie's work, and this is really going to be a treat to see this show when it comes to fruition. We're going to be speaking today about a number of people, primarily. These are mentors, champions of mine, 8 or 9 of these characters. We are also going to see a few paintings, then we'll see 3 videos. One is 3 minutes long, one's 2 minutes long, and one is 30 seconds long. So we're going to be out of here before you know it. But now this is the gizmo, and I hit that button here. Apparently not. There we go. Okay, this is Agnes and Betty Mongan. These, if you're a woman in fine arts scholarship in this day and age, you owe a debt to these 2 women. I had the privilege of being under their wings for 25 years. And Betty founded the print and drawing department at the National Gallery. And Agnes was the first woman to be the director of a major museum in North America. And I'm smiling because, man, some of the stories they would tell. And one of my favorites is the fact that when Agnes was working at the Fog doing major curatorial work, they would not allow her the title of curator. She could only call herself keeper of prints. Well, now, this is really curious, particularly because at that very moment, she was assembling Bernard Berenson's private collection that turned out to be one of the great private collections in the history of art, yet they wouldn't allow her to call herself a curator. Anyway, I mean, can you imagine, Barbara Haskell, can you imagine say, Barbara, sorry, you can't play because you're a girl, so Agnes is a lot more patient than that, but it's the kind of thing where she has gone on to set the bar high for all of us. This is our dear friend Lane Faison with me and Glenn. Dan Hodomarsky, terrific artist and teacher. My dear friend Wayne Thiebaud, if you have heard the ridiculous adage that those who can do, those who can't teach, This is the guy that blows that right out of the water. He would frequently introduce himself to people primarily as a teacher and then as a painter, secondly. Never called himself an artist. Marion Brown, dear friend, sax player who turned me on to Sun Ra, who, with Robert's talk earlier, I had a privilege of doing a portrait of Sun Ra, who asked me if I could write him a check for $1 million, which I didn't have on me at the moment. But he wanted to build a landing strip for aliens outside of Philadelphia. So that was, well, to Robert's point, it's, space is the place. And this, of course, Leonard Baskin, to whom I was apprenticed for the better part of a decade. And this is an assemblage I did of him and when he was alive and well. It is one of his favorites that he ever did. So this is special. This is my dear friend Maurice Berger, who was, when I moved to New York, he was my seeing eye dog for the first decade I was here. We lost him during COVID, which is just a heartbreaking thing. Now, how do you remember these people that have been so critical to you every month that you're bringing ideas to life? This is this is Henry Geldzahler. I was privileged to be in the last group of deadbeat painters of Henry's. And this, believe it or not, this painting is now the 10th piece of mine in the Metropolitan Museum. It was given by a dear friend of Henry's who inherited it when we lost Henry. This was the SX70 shot was taken at a dinner that 4 or 5 of us had for Henry for his 55th birthday. And that's IK, crazy IK, who's now a noted dandy, as he has been known for his recent activity up at the Met. I never heard him talk about that one, but hey, whatever, And but the fun part here is we have him driving in a Toontown car. And Henry, not only could Henry not drive, but if he sat behind the wheel of a parked car, he would break out into a ferocious sweat. So the fact that we have him driving, this is called Henry in the Hamptons. And as I say, you can see it now up on 81st Street. And this is a 1986 assemblage I did of my art big brother, Chuck, who was at UMass when I was apprenticed to Leonard Baskin. And Henry would always tell us that there's no such thing as a good idea for a painting or a bad idea for a painting. They're just good paintings and bad paintings. In other words, don't even talk about them until you do them. Chuck had similar terminology. He would talk about, getting an idea that excites you, but where the rubber meets the road is the making. And what I've learned over the years is that stretch, that adventure, that between the dream and the craft, between the idea and the making, is rampant with opportunities for accidents. And the more accidents that you encourage, the more mystery the art has, and eventually the more power the art has. Essentially, the best artists, for a matter of speaking, are curators of these accidents. And I think that's a very important point to appreciate. And one of the things that a case in point is that if you see my work, I build up different layers of stuff and then I'll rip into it literally with power tools at different gradations. And what happens, I build up a layer of oils and I soak them up with old envelopes and I throw them away just to cut through the drying. And one day I soaked up some stuff with this old envelope and I threw it away and I missed the wastebasket. And what was on the floor was better than the painting I was working on. And how does that happen? Well, yeah, I picked up this envelope and I put it up on the windowsill. And this is when I was working downtown. And I really got into the supposed waste paper with travel documentation on it. It told you where it had come from, how much it had cost to get that to you. And most importantly, it included a return address, where the object had come from. And this, I would be painting on these things, and they became so much more interesting to work on than the inert canvas. Well, with this in mind, we we move on to these paintings that we've had in this country over the last couple hundred years. I uh, and this is the oxbow that Thomas Cole painted. And as you can see in the lower right hand corner or the lower center corner, there's a self portrait there. Well, I took exception to that because Cole never lived in the Northampton Amherst area. I did, not only with my apprenticeship with Baskin, but I stuck around for a few years after that before moving to New York. So I felt a little that I had to reclaim this. And I wasn't able to, have myself hanging out in the foreground. Most of my work has no foregrounds. I like breaking that two-dimensional plane before you get to the midground that catches the light and dictates the mood. And so I wound up writing diaries through the cornfields and just telling stories about my friends and celebrating many of the people that I just showed you pictures with. This is a piece that I was honored to have up at the Metropolitan Museum for a number of years. Actually, there's a fun story where Sabina Rewall had me down in the catacombs to translate the diaries through these things. And I went to brush some of the schmutz off of this thing, and the guards were down there, and they say, "Don't touch the painting." I've been ripping through this thing with power tools, and they don't want me brushing the dust off. And so I said, "Yeah, yeah, okay." And so I translated the thing. We were down there for a while, and I said, "Well, are you gonna put this painting up? Is it gonna hang up?" She goes, I think we are. I think we are. It's going to go up in 2 weeks, and it should be there for a few months. And I went, oh man, that's great. Well, this is really an emotional moment for me. Could I spend a few moments alone with this painting? And they said, oh, yeah, absolutely. She got up, her assistants got up, and the guards left, and they went down where the other racks were. I took my t shirt off and dusted the painting down to get all the sawdust off of this thing. But the cool part is the painting was up for 17 years. So, and it added a number of paintings in the along the way. So that's always been a thrill. And and this is one of two of my most recent paintings. And the coincidence here is these are both acquired by Jim Dickey and Janet Dickey, who were here earlier. And Jim was speaking up here. So I thought that was kind of cool that, these pieces, that contemporary pieces that were acquired by somebody that Lisa has lassoed in here. And I've started probably about 15 years ago, I started collaging images along with the text through these paintings. And this is a nocturne of the same subject matter. I use a lot of the same templates to start, but each one corresponds to a different mentor. And on this particular piece right here, we'll close in on. And this is actually my late wife and I modeled for Chuck Close's Adam and Eve daguerreotype. And what is special about this for me is that here we are. Daguerreotypes require an awful lot of light, just massive amounts of light, and then a strobe on top of it at the moment of that the picture is taken. And so we're there, and we're naked as jaybirds under this streaking light. My wife was less than thrilled, and but we were, things were moving along. And I just asked Chuck what his daughter was doing. His daughter's name was Georgia, and he goes, "Oh man, she's going to medical school." And like, of course, I remember Georgia being 2 feet high, And my wife turns to me and she goes, Georgia, that's what we're going to call our daughter. And really, I had just finished this Oxbow piece that the Met had acquired. And I wrote through the diary, oh, we're going to have a baby this spring and her name's going to be Chloe. And yeah, I said, sweetie, that's cool, but fill me in on these things. I'm part of the ride here. So this is a cool way to remember that. And now when Georgia comes back, she always likes to run through the Met to see her alter ego in the painting. Now, this is, let's see. Okay, this is probably going to be, let's do this. We're going to show, this is the first video here. This has volume. I'm sorry? Okay, good. But this is a trailer to a documentary that was shot called Dreamscapes. Wolfram Hissen followed me, big German guy, followed me around for years, and he just disappeared. But my musician friend will be furious if this music is not playing. Well, anyway, so Wolfram does all of Christo's documentaries. So this was really fun. And the documentary centered on a project that Sting and I are involved with his hometown of Newcastle, England, which is reinventing itself after the entire ship industry, which was among the most sophisticated in the world for 300 years, along with the coal mining industry, all closed over a 10-year period. So there were 1 million people out of work in Northern England, and they had to reinvent themselves. And so basically, this is how these things. Really, guys, you can't turn on some. Well, anyway, this I'm just thinking if Gary Tinereau finds out what he says here is not, he's gonna be pissed. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the next piece. Guys, go to the next one. Next one doesn't have sound. Okay, now this is I am as influenced by Hitchcock and David Lean as I am by the 19th century painters, because these guys had exceptionally long establishing shots to dictate the mood before they drew you into their story. This is a 30-second establishing shot, drove Hollywood producers crazy, who only wanted 2 seconds before they got into the piece. And Hitch does, here we are in supposedly an Indiana cornfield. It was not, because it's Bakersfield. It's Bakersfield, and which has been painted out in the upper right on the horizon. But this is where he wants to just completely envelop you in this. Now, is there a reason why this is stopped? It doesn't take Cary Grant that long to get off the bus, Okay, well, he's going. So anyway, now watch what Hitch does here. This is, okay, they're going to let him off here. He's set us up with this establishing shot where you're seeing this world, this space. We are just totally in the middle of nowhere. His medium ground shot after this takes us to a ground level where the horizon is really low and Cary's in the middle of nowhere, isolated. There's just nothing else. And then the close up the horizon covers up his head. So he is swallowed up by this landscape. And that's a sequence that is dictated by Hitchcock's embracing of this mood, of this vista. The Hollywood guys just could never get the hang of that. So this is a very a critical point for me because this set the stage for the stories that I would then tell, literally right through the pieces. And uh, connected with that is the possibility of how about duplicating an establishing shot. I mean, if there is possibly a way that you could get paint that emits its own light, and we could get into a situation where you replace the light that comes through a transparent window with light that's emitted off of an opaque canvas, you could not only duplicate the effect of an establishing shot, a static establishing shot, but you could create a piece whose three dimensionality would blow 70 millimeter film out of the water. And I actually came across a way to get all these different pigments back in the 70s. I collaborated with Anthony Davis, who I met through Marion Brown, a great jazz player who has gone into operas. And you are probably familiar with his opera Malcolm X that was just staged at Lincoln Center last season. And you might have read about him last week when our illustrious president was less than thrilled with being in his current opera of the Central Park Five. And we might add that these are actually Donald's words himself. So you can't claim fake news in this situation. But anyway, Anthony's opera has been canceled, as have a lot of projects at Mass MoCA. But the thing that's exciting about this is the tour that we went on with 3 of these huge phosphorescent murals of mine, and Anthony giving these improvisational recitals we did in the late 70s. We are restaging now. And the thing that's so exciting about this, you think about these, ideas and these dreams that you have. How often do artists get to revisit an idea 50 years after the original idea? Now that people don't even know what head shops are anymore, the black light, day glow stuff, that vibe is gone. And the tubes, the big, heavy tubes of black lights have been replaced by LED buds that are a quarter on a tape, a quarter an inch thick. And Anthony loves playing in the dark too. So we have a piano in the middle of the floor, and the paintings go on in the dark. And the only light in the room is coming from these paintings, each of them looking like you're looking out of the window. So this is really exciting. And to top this off, the real exciting thing is that we were never able to photograph this because emulsion-based photography just can't handle, even with filters, the depth that the medium gets, as well as the fog created by the black light. So you just were left with whatever. But with digital photography, we can finally capture some of this stuff. Now, what we're going to show now is a 30-second art break, the first collaboration that Sting and I had. And the point with this that is really fun is that this is how Sting and I met, because a lot of the men in his family are colorblind. It's a trait that's passed down through the male sex in a family. And he's never seen a painting before until he held the 3-foot study of the piece that we used in this thing. And he had just split up with with the Police, which was his band before, and he was a nervous wreck going out on his own. And we met. I had my first show in New York downstairs from a Korean whorehouse on 17th Street, and somehow he found his way there, and we just hit it off, and we've been getting in trouble ever since, and we're godfathers to each other's daughters and stuff. And so this first one was shot in black and white by Buddy Squires. You know Buddy Squires and Ken Burns and stuff if you've seen anything PBS. They're in the process of doing another documentary of my work right now. But let's see that 30-second art break now. Can we do that? Okay. This is Buddy Squires has done documentaries in battlefields in Southeast Asia. And if its equipment breaks down, he fixes it with twigs and stuff around here. And that's what happened when we were filming this thing. But he found this news footage that was just really high contrast, black and white, and we were able to at least get a little bit of an illusion from that. We'll, we'll listen to it without the sound. This is the intro to Synchronicity. It's only 30 seconds long, but the best we could do with color is just to have a transparency film. We just didn't know how to project this thing. So now, and this was, we just shot this thing 2 days ago before I hopped on the train to come down here. And this is a painting that is currently underway right now. And you can get an idea of what it's like to be working on these pieces that emit their own light. The light is very sophisticated, much more so than the garish day-glow stuff of the 60s, and being surrounded by these vistas. And you may recognize this composition. The foundation for this is that scene in North by Northwest when Eva Marie Saint and Cary Grant are going up the Hudson River. And this is exactly the scene out the window. I've just removed the train and I've moved Bannerman Castle 12 miles south to put it in the middle of that. But who's counting, you know? And so that's where we are right now. And the last thing I got to tell you, in the light of where we are with our culture and politics, we're going to get through this, and we just need to have the patience. And I have to tell you this story that is really a good one. You would have seen a little section with Tom Colicchio. I did a massive piece for one of Tom's restaurants, and we did a 10th anniversary of the painting is of the New York High Line, and it's got a bunch of stories that we tell through it and stuff. And Robert Hammond, who was one of the guys whose idea was to halt the destruction of this bridge and actually create this elevated park, he comes up to me and he goes, "Listen, I want you to meet this guy who will remain nameless. His family, or he owns 2 buildings that are but the High Line." And I went, "Wow, this is really cool. You got to love what's going on with this High Line." And those of you who aren't from the city, the New York High Line goes right through the Chelsea art neighborhood. But before there was art in Chelsea, there was storage and garage work, many of them owned by families in northern New Jersey. And these guys said, I was actually over there 20 years ago, and I was in an elevator with a building owner and an elevator inspector. And we were going up in the elevator. I just wanted to get to the 3rd floor. There was some static going on between these guys. And this guy's going, "Oh, Mr. Panisi, I'm sorry, these wires cannot hang down." He's got his clipboard there. And this lights have to be on so people know when they're stepping. And he's, "Oh, you've got some problems here." And this guy reaches in his pocket, starts snapping off $100 bills. He goes, "I know what you're talking about. It's a beautiful elevator." Stuff. And the guy goes, "Oh, Mr. Panisi, it's a beautiful elevator." And I'm sitting there, "Okay, good." I bolted. 25 years later, I'm talking to this guy whose family owns a couple of these buildings. And I went, "Wow, this is great. This is really cool. You can't hate the value of this property going." He goes, and he's wearing a white suit. It's one of those suits that you sort of see like a dichroic reflection. You're not really sure what the fabric is, but you don't dwell on it. You just move on. And it's got to be great. He goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really good. Yeah, but you left my buildings out of your painting. First of all, I don't paint that way. And secondly, it's like stuff comes and goes. You're not doing one bill. I don't happen to paint one building specific. Anyway, I launched into a very reasonable treatise of artist license. And I swear it was not a 45-minute, passage. It wasn't even a minute. I would just say, sometimes, you might change things that don't really belong there, but it makes for a better painting. And we call this artist license and stuff like that. But apparently the 45 seconds I was spending was too long. And halfway through this, he reaches in his pocket, pulls out a wad of $100 bills, starts snapping these things off. Boom, boom. And before I was even finished, he goes, yeah, that's great. That's great. So how much for this your art license that lets you put my buildings back in your fucking painting? There we go. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Lisa. Enjoy. It was actually canceled because of inferior museum as Williams College is having their reunions that week. There's no place for anybody to stay. So we're going to go to July. We'll let you know.
Yes, everybody's now going to have to online there. Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't know where you live.
Tell me where the elevator is. Okay, everybody, I'm going to say something before you guys leave. A headlock was alluded to, and I just want you to know it's not a headlock, it's an embrace. And with that, and lots of love, we send you on your way to the evening activity. Hope to see a lot of you there. And we will most definitely see you next year. And hopefully, we have several surprises for you. It is the 250th of the United States. And there's a lot to be said about where we are and what's to come. So, anyway, with immense thanks for joining us. And again, to Heritage for hosting, and to Marty for the O'Brien Art Foundation and his personal leadership, and really lots of love. Wish you a really spectacular few days, and please send us thoughts, ideas, suggestions. We love them. Thank you.